Okay, guys, this is just going to be a real quick review of Period 1. You've already done most of that work, and we're just going to hit a few of those high points. So brace yourself. The Europeans are coming. Okay, so you had this as part of your summer assignment. This is just basically showing the different tribes and indigenous people that were in North America when Columbus made his fateful voyage. Maize, of course, the important crop you need to know. Those sister crops, beans, squash, and maize. Maize is going to make a huge difference in the New World. So although you had all these tribes in a rather large population, they were separate. They did not have alliances, so therefore when the Europeans came in, other than the Iroquois, who finally did form a few alliances up there in that northeast, most of these tribes were independent and not working together. The Aztecs, of course, a very large population, as were the Incas. Okay, just another showing of this map. Okay, so what were the goals of the Europeans? Gold, God, and glory, that mercantilism. They wanted to bring back riches to their country. So it was all about wealth, and then of course then here came your missionaries. Catholic religion was the predominant religion during that time, and the Pope was pretty much in charge. So the idea of conversion, we're going to be talking about that. All right, so they had lots and lots of tools to bring to the New World, and and a lot of that originated in the Mideast. So Gutenberg. Now we had the Renaissance, Gutenberg with the printing press. We had faster ships with those caravels. Amerigo Vespucci, he's going to start making maps, taking trips across, and of course we end up being America after him. England is going to join the fray. We're going to talk about that in the next time period. Also to make money with joint stock companies, and of course diseases going back and forth, with the Native Americans suffering the worst of it, although they did send syphilis back to Europe. Okay, so we're going to talk about Columbus. They're tearing down Columbus statues right now, saying that basically he was responsible and horrible to the indigenous people. So we'll actually watch a little John Oliver video about that when we finish this presentation. Okay, for those of you at home, I'd like you to take a look at this video. A lot of this is review, but it's good review. So you can click that link and watch that video. Okay, this is basically, again, you're going to see all the things that came from the New World that improved the life of Europeans, longer life expectancy, and then, of course, coming the other way, things like domesticated cattle and honeybees, coffee. I always think that's really interesting that Italy did not have tomatoes until the New World started sending these things back. But the main thing, the most important thing, of course, is corn, the maize, potatoes going to Ireland, sweet potatoes going to Africa. So just a tremendous, tremendous improvement. All right, encomienda, of course, is a forced enslavement of the indigenous people. I'm going to have to pause for a second. So this system, of course, just pretty much was genocide for the many of the Native American people. They died. They died from disease. They died from harsh working conditions. It didn't work out. So what's the plan going to be? They need workers. So this is going to lead, of course, to the importation of slaves from Africa. And this is kind of a very dark period of time for the Native American people. You can see, the plan is to convert to Christianity, and then yet the reality is they end up dying. So there were people that spoke out against it, and we are going to talk about that with De La Casas and a fellow named Sepulveda, who actually promoted the idea of the superiority of the Europeans over the Native Americans. Sepulveda did. Now, De La Casas, a guy who appealed to the Pope for better treatment for the native people, but he still was a slaveholder. So, here he is, a priest. You've got to look at the times. So these are two quotes about the treatment of the natives. Basically, we shall seize your possessions and harm you as much as we can as disobedient and resisting vassals. So basically, the time. You've got to put yourself in the time. It may be accomplished with no offense to God, without death nor robbery of said Indians, and without enslaving them, so that the desire to spread our faith among them be achieved without grieving our consciences. So basically, it starts out pretty bad, and then they order the fair treatment, but by then it's too late because most of them are dead. Okay, so this leads to the Atlantic slave trade. This is a short video that I'd like you to watch, and it's a TED Talk video, so it gives you kind of maybe some information that you were not aware of about the slave trade. This is going to result in the triangular trade, and we're going to talk about that when we get to colonization as well, because that's going to involve the southern plantations in the colonies, as well as the shipbuilding and the making of rum and so forth in the northern colonies. But they're going to call this the triangular trade, and this is going to go on for a good over 100 years. Enter France. France is we're pretty much talking about Spanish and Portuguese up to this time. And then France is the next to talk about colonization. And they are a little bit different. They're not near as aggressive towards the Native Americans. They actually set up trade with the Native Americans, especially fur trade. And they're going to travel all the way down the Mississippi River, LaSalle, of course, and into Louisiana. So New Orleans becomes a major colony for them in the early 1700s, and Quebec and Canada. So then England is coming in almost last. And of course, the first that we talked about, joint stock companies, they were in it for the money, but we're going to bring lots and lots of people. So instead of just coming in with the conquistador types, sorry about that, and men, it's going to be families. This is a little bit different, and I am sorry. We're going to talk about that a lot. Okay, so this is a chart showing the basic differences in colonization by the three major countries, the Spanish, the British, and the French. I suggest you get acquainted with this. This is quite often a short answer question on the AP test at the end of the year. So this is a very, very helpful chart, and I would suggest that you kind of look this over and see, so be able to tell the differences in colonization between the Spanish, the British, and the French. Okay, so we are looking at a time period where there was a definite superiority, European superiority complex. They believed that they were superior to the indigenous races and, of course, from the Africans. So this is something that is going to go on through time, and there were, of course, certain people that resisted. We're going to talk about the Pueblos, who actually fought against the Spanish, and we're going to talk about some resistance in the northern part of North America as well. And then, of course, they were vastly because of weaponry and so forth at a disadvantage in this matter. This is the Pueblo Uprising. The Spanish had come into this area of New Mexico and tried to force labor. They were very, very brutal. There's stories of them cutting off feet, cutting off hands, and trying to force the religion. And a guy named Pope, leader of the Pueblo people, he led this revolt, and basically they took their land back. They tore down all the monuments, and they actually were fairly successful for a period of time. But then the Spanish came back, but they were a little bit better when they came back 12 years later. Okay, so this is the end of period 1. We're going to be moving on very shortly to period 2 after we look at some documents and do a little analysis.